I would also like to congratulate women leaders on Jeju Island for establishing the Jeju Women Governance Forum. We are here to discuss the important role of women and indigenous knowledge to preserve and maintain your unique environment. In Jeju, as in most places around the world, the knowledge of women is indispensable, and yet often undervalued. Your work shows that women's empowerment on Jeju Island is good for all the island's inhabitants. So we are doing women applaud your efforts to work closely with the provincial government to address the needs and concerns of Jeju's women. It is time for increased participation of women in the island's governmental affairs. Women often possess the necessary experience and intricate knowledge of ecosystems to halt and reverse the trend of diminishing natural resources. And women are part of the solution for achieving sustainable energy growth. When we only look around Jeju Island to see evidence of this at work, women occupy a special place in the island's history and economy, playing a dominant role in survival of the community. The Henrietta Islanders are famous for their skills and knowledge and making a living from the sea. For centuries, women on Jeju Island have provided sustenance for themselves and their families by living harmoniously with the environment, diving to harvest food in the sea of the volcanic island shore. Despite their unique status as survivors, women on Jeju have been exploring many other areas of life. The Jeju Women Governance Forum can enhance the role of women to obtain a greater stake in the decision making. All of us at your women stand beside you. 2 months ago, we worked hard at Rio+20, the UN Conference on Sustainable Development, to make sure that women's empowerment and gender equality were prioritized in the meeting's agreement. Women's full participation is essential for economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Jeju Island serves as one example that ignoring the traditional knowledge of indigenous people and women possess the threat of further biodiversity loss around the world. Today, research finds that 2/3 of the services provided by nature to humankind are intertwined, and 85% of all fish stocks are depleted, recovering, or exploited. Such trends will only continue if women and indigenous people remain marginalized from the discourse and decision making. It is undeniable that women and indigenous peoples have strong ties to their environments and have developed ways to adapt to changes. Moreover, because they have the most to lose, women have a strong incentive to protect nature. It is therefore imperative that we focus on conserving biodiversity and protecting our ecosystems with a focus on equality and inclusiveness. We need an approach that lends a clearer and more complete picture of what we can do to lessen our negative impact on the earth. We need to find ways to both contribute to and benefit from the richness that our environment has to offer. I look forward to hearing more about your initiatives at the Jeju Women Governance Forum. Your women stands beside you, and I wish you much success.
I think this specialist message is very clear. Women have the experience and knowledge of ecosystems to how the loss of natural resources, and she also emphasized women are part of the solution. Before proceeding, I'm really glad that Madame Song Yong Park, Jeju Governance Vice President, joined us. Let me introduce you, Ms. Madam Song Yong. Welcome, Madam. We are very glad to see you here. Thank you for being with us. Let me now give the floor to Ms. Hyun Sun Ryu, Chairperson of Jeju Women Governance Forum. Welcome us.
이번 제주 세계 자연환경 포럼에서 4대 47개의 포럼이 운영이 된다고 합니다. 다 중요하겠지만 특히 우리 이번 포럼은 의미가 있습니다. UNDP하고 우간다, 그리고 우리 제주여성 버너넌스 포럼 이 세 단체가 공동으로 개최를 했습니다. 자연을 주제로 해서 자연의 치유 체험에서 이루어지는 평등을 주제로 해서 북반구 남반구를 넘어서 대륙을 넘어서 세계 곳곳에 지혜가 이 자리에서 논의될 것입니다. 많은 분 참석해 주셔서 대단히 감사합니다.
As you have realized, this workshop was announced wrongly in the program. That's why we were having this late start, and even some of our panelists and keynote speaker couldn't make this workshop. So in the program, Ms. Elizabeth Brema was going to have a keynote speech. Maybe she's going to join us later. So let's proceed with our distinguished panelists. First, let me invite Ms. Rosemary Portela, Senior Director in Conservation International. She will make a presentation on recognizing and capturing the value of natural capital, lessons learned from the Madagascar case study. Dr. Portela's research focuses primarily on nature's provision of ecosystem services and their contribution to human well-being. She leads a team of researchers working on a variety of biophysical and economics modeling techniques to estimate provision benefits and value of ecosystem services at multiple scales, working across several conservation international divisions, field offices, and other research partners. She also supports the development of research and decision supporting tools designed to enhance mapping of ecosystem services and understanding of their contribution to economies. Yes, Ms. Portela, I would like to ask you two main questions. One is, what is missing when nature's value is excluded from decisions? And secondly, which tools can be used to address this issue? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored and very emotional even to be here. I am a scientist. I work with the benefits of nature. But I have to say that I'm a mother as well. I have two small children who I miss very much. So I'm very, very honored to be here speaking to other mothers as well, who like myself care for the nature and for the conservation of the benefits of biodiversity for the next generations, including that of our children. So let me start by saying that in this conference, as well as in the Rio Plus 20, we heard a lot about natural capital and the importance of including natural capital values into consideration for decision-making processes and policy-making. But what is natural capital? Well, in economics, natural capital is basically the extension of economic notion of capital. We are very familiar with, for example, the built human and social capital to nature. So it's essentially one of the important inputs for economic production and economic growth. So in classic economics, we used to talk about land. So we now talk about natural capital. It can be renewable, such as the forest, mangroves, coral reefs, which if maintained and conserved and sustainably managed, can continue to provide for this and next generation, year after year, benefits of nature in terms of clean air regulation, water, good quality and abundant water, for example. There is also non-renewable, which is like minerals, for example, which are underground and take a long, long time to be there. So this is quite important to consider that our economy is very dependent on natural capital, and therefore our society and our cities and our development is very much dependent on us being better stewards of natural capital. But so, if we know that natural capital is so important, why do we keep making decisions that very much disregard the importance of natural capital for humans and for the livelihoods of many people? One of the main problems is that we don't account for natural capital, which means that we don't really measure how much we get from nature. And therefore, we take for granted. We take for granted the water that we consume, that comes from streams, that comes from forests. We take for granted the abilities of ecosystems to regulate and provide that clean water. So what we need to do is to look and work with scientists to determine what are the indicators, the measurements, that very much, the statistics, if you will, that can be used so we can inform decision makers and governors and mayors and legislatures that yes, we are using this very important resource in that amount in terms of how much we use per year and how much the volumes of it, biophysical volumes of it, and what the value of it is. Well, when we know that, then we can better make decisions. We can make better decisions that rely on ecosystems that are protected and managed to continue to provide for the services. And that's not only at the public sector, the government level, but also at the business. The business very much rely on the input of natural capital and also have an impact with the degradation, such as pollution, for example. So it's important for us to create a new paradigm, an economic paradigm that is very cognizant of the importance of the values of nature, especially with respect to ecosystem services, which are the benefits of nature that we get year after year. Now, let me tell you about some of the initiatives that are going on that are important to account for that. One of them is done by the United Nations, and it very much wants to look into that natural capital from the perspective of the core statistics that the government uses to make decisions. We are very familiar with GDP, which is probably the most important statistic. So what the UN System of Environmental Accounting now is doing is really trying to establish those statistics so the governments can produce and use those statistics into decision making. But how do we do that? How do we implement? The World Bank is working very closely with the United Nations SIA, as well as with 5 pilot countries to do this on the ground, to very much look into some areas and measure those values and put them in a way that the decision makers can better understand the use and the impact of some economic sectors into the nature. And what I'm going to talk next is one example of research we did in Madagascar. We're in a very important area. Madagascar is under a lot of threat of deforestation. It's a very important area in terms of biodiversity because it harbors thousands of species, many of them that are found nowhere on Earth, but has a lot of threat of deforestation that is primarily for agriculture of a very growing population rates that are found in the country, primarily for rice production. So we looked into this area, which is called Ahemi-Zahamena corridor, and we looked to see what were those measurements, what were the biophysical, economic, and policy implications of the use of the services. We looked into in terms of carbon storage and sequestration. We looked in terms of water supply and sediment retention. Our results show, and we did that in 2 sites. One site that was primarily forest covered but had agriculture and settlements as well. And we did in another site adjacent that was primarily deforested and used for agriculture. So our results show that the site that is still has forest on it, it's one of the features, really plays a significant role in providing water for the local communities and has offer potential to provide more water in the future, which means that there could be an increasing demand for water and the system would be able to meet that demand of water for production in the region. On the other side, on the other hand, basically agriculture was taking up all the water. There is no more potential for expansion of agriculture that is doing by irrigation for rice production because almost everything is being taken. So sediment regulation was also the same issue. The sites that was forest had far lower levels of sediments in terms of sediment loads than the other side. And finally, the forest stores carbon, which helps climate regulation, which is important to prevent further global warming. So, why does it matter? Well, in Madagascar, policies need to be put in place to take care of water and to ensure that the sites that are providing, okay, I have to wrap up. The sites that are, the forest sites have to be protected just so water will be continuously be provided, and the same, and sediments will be controlled. Sediments are a major economic loss in Madagascar in terms of loss of production, in terms of the repairs of the damage. Climate regulation, we see potential for alternatives that will for reduce emissions for deforestation and degradation with REDD+, which would allow the government, if such schemes are put in place, to protect the forests of Madagascar. I will just move on and talk about the key messages to wrap up this presentation. We really need to move to a sustainable development paradigm that is really accounts for the value of nature and limits its transformation. We need to understand that there are trade-offs associated with some economic development, and we need to be aware of the losses of the associated with the development, but the benefits associated with conservation. And finally, I would say that we are very much capable of producing those statistics and working with governments and the business sector to demonstrate those benefits in very tangible terms. I thank you very much. I will leave now and I'll be available for questions.
Thank you. Since time is limited, I'm not going to make any summary, but your case really provides evidence that the cows provide important benefits for people in terms of climate stabilization as well as water supply and sediment regulation. Let me now invite Mr. Huan Teng for presenting the case of mainstreaming ecosystem services into planning and policy in Vietnam. Mr. Huan Teng is the director of Center for Natural Resources and Environmental Studies. And he is an ecologist, and his expertise is especially in wetlands, biodiversity conservation, and he has experience of 30 years. Mr. Huan Teng, the floor is yours, sir. And I have one question for you. This is, why do you want to integrate ecosystem services concept into development decisions in Vietnam? Why is it important? And you have 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm so sorry I cannot speak in Korean to say that to such wonderful participants here who represent the Jeju, I guess, in this room. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the chair to allow me to present the report from my college. Secondly, this is my privilege to express my deep feelings when I come to Jeju. You know, ecosystems, there are a number of components, but three things I found here for my reading that really represent in this room. One is wind, two is rock, and three is green. So those are three things make Jeju the very island.